In a quiet suburban neighborhood, Clara and Daniel had spent 10 years building a life together. To outsiders, they seemed like the perfect couple. But behind the scenes, cracks had been forming in their relationship for years. Clara felt trapped, longing for something more, while Daniel, always the devoted husband, remained unaware of her growing unhappiness. One evening, as the golden light of sunset filled their living room window, Clara approached Daniel with a heavy heart. "I think we need to separate," she said, her voice trembling. Daniel froze, the words hitting him like a physical blow. "Separate?" he repeated, his tone a mix of disbelief and pain. "Clara, why? We can work through this." But Clara had already made up her mind. What she didn't reveal was the real reason for her desire to leave. An affair with a man named Julian, whom she had met at a work event 6 months earlier. Julian was everything Daniel wasn't. Spontaneous, adventurous, and dangerously exciting. Daniel refused to consider the idea of separation. He believed in their marriage vows and was determined to fix whatever was broken. "We promised to stand by each other, no matter what," he said firmly. "I'm not giving up on us." Clara, however, was torn between guilt and her desire for freedom. She tried to convince Daniel that their love had run its course, but he wouldn't budge. Frustrated and desperate, she finally confessed the truth. "I've been seeing someone else," she blurted out. Daniel's face went pale. He stood in silence for what felt like an eternity before speaking. "Is that why you want to leave?" "For him." Clara nodded, unable to meet his gaze. She expected an angry reaction, but Daniel surprised her. Without raising his voice, he said, "If you're willing to throw away everything we've built for someone you barely know, then I won't stop you." He walked to their bedroom, packed a small bag, and left the house. Clara watched him drive away, her heart sinking with a mix of relief and regret. She had wanted freedom, but seeing Daniel walk away felt like losing a part of herself. In the weeks that followed, Clara tried to move forward with Julian, but the affair, once intoxicating, began to feel shallow. Julian wasn't interested in building a life with her. He thrived on the thrill of the forbidden. Without Daniel's steady presence, Clara's world felt unsteady. Meanwhile, Daniel started over. He moved to a new city, focused on his career, and rediscovered passions he had set aside during his marriage. Slowly, he rebuilt his life, surrounded by supportive friends and family. Clara, left to face the consequences of her actions, realized too late what she had lost. The man she thought would always fight for her had finally chosen himself, leaving her to grapple with the emptiness she had created. As the months passed, Clara's life became a cycle of regret and reflection. Julian's charm wore thin, and their relationship fizzled out under the weight of unmet expectations. She had traded stability and unconditional love for fleeting excitement, and now she had neither. Daniel, on the other hand, was flourishing in his new environment. He joined a hiking group, something he had always wanted to do but had put off due to Clara's disinterest. He also started attending local events, meeting new people, and slowly rebuilding his confidence. His colleagues noticed a change in him. He seemed lighter, more at peace. One day, Clara decided to reach out to Daniel. She had spent weeks drafting an apology letter, pouring out her guilt and sorrow. She sent it, hoping he might give her a chance to explain herself in person. When Daniel received the letter, he read it with a calmness he wouldn't have thought possible months earlier. Her words were full of regret, but they no longer had the power to shake him. He had spent too much time piecing himself back together to reopen old wounds. Clara requested a meeting, and though hesitant, Daniel agreed. They met at a quiet cafe in their old neighborhood. Clara's hands trembled as she spoke. "I don't expect you to forgive me," she began, "but I wanted to tell you how sorry I am. I made a terrible mistake, and I hurt the one person who always stood by me." Daniel listened intently, his expression unreadable. When she finished, he took a deep breath. "Clara, I appreciate your apology. It takes courage to admit when you've done wrong, but the truth is, I've moved on. I can't go back to what we were, Not after everything that's happened. Tears welled up in Clara's eyes, but she nodded. I understand. You deserve better than what I gave you. Daniel offered a small, bittersweet smile. We both deserve happiness, even if it's not together. As they parted ways, Clara felt a sense of finality she hadn't expected. For the first time, she understood that some bridges, once burned, could never be rebuilt. Daniel returned to his life with a renewed sense of purpose. Over time, he began dating again, cautiously allowing himself to hope for a future with someone new. Meanwhile, Clara embarked on her own journey of self-discovery, determined to learn from her mistakes and become a better person. Their paths would never cross again, but both carried forward the lessons they had learned. For Daniel, it was a reminder of his own resilience. For Clara, it was a painful but necessary awakening about the consequences of taking love for granted. Years passed, and life took Clara and Daniel in vastly different directions. Daniel eventually met someone new, Elena, a kind-hearted and adventurous woman who shared his passion for the outdoors. Their relationship grew slowly, built on trust and mutual respect. With Elena, Daniel found a love that felt natural and secure, free from the tension that had marked his marriage to Clara. Clara, on the other hand, struggled to let go of her past completely. Though she had vowed to change, the weight of her choices often lingered in her mind. She pursued therapy and focused on her career, throwing herself into community projects to fill the emptiness in her heart. It wasn't easy, but over time, she began to find a sense of purpose in helping others. One evening, Clara was attending a fundraiser for a local charity when she noticed a familiar face across the room. It was Daniel, hand in hand with Elena. They looked happy, truly happy, and Clara couldn't help but feel a pang of sadness mixed with relief. She realized in that moment that Daniel had found the peace she had denied him during their marriage. Daniel noticed her too and gave a polite nod. Clara returned it with a small smile, silently wishing him well. She had no intention of interrupting his new life. Seeing him content was enough. The encounter, brief as it was, marked a turning point for Clara. It was as though a chapter of her life had finally closed. She no longer clung to the hope of reconciliation or the guilt of her mistakes. Instead, she focused on the person she was becoming, a version of herself who could love and respect others without selfishness. For Daniel, the sight of Clara didn't stir any bitterness. He had forgiven her long ago, not for her sake, but for his own. Seeing her now, he felt nothing but gratitude for the lessons their relationship had taught him. In the years that followed, both Clara and Daniel thrived in their own ways. Clara eventually found love again, though it came much later than she had expected. Her new partner valued honesty and emotional growth, qualities Clara had worked hard to cultivate. Daniel and Elena married in a small, intimate ceremony surrounded by friends and family. Together, they built a life full of joy and mutual support, a stark contrast to the struggles of his past. Though their journeys had diverged, both Clara and Daniel found the peace they had sought in their own ways. Their story, once marked by heartbreak and betrayal, became a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the power of growth after loss. As time went on, the ripples of Clara and Daniel's choices continued to shape their lives. Clara became deeply involved in her community, mentoring young women and sharing her story in hopes of helping others avoid her mistakes. Her candidness was refreshing, and she found fulfillment in turning her past into a source of wisdom for others. One day, at a community event, Clara crossed paths with an older woman named Margaret, who shared a piece of advice that resonated deeply. "Life is a series of chapters," Margaret said, "and sometimes the best chapters come after the ones we regret the most." Inspired, Clara decided to write a memoir about her experiences. The process was cathartic, forcing her to confront the pain she had caused and endured. The memoir, titled Burned Bridges and New Beginnings, became a modest success, with readers praising her vulnerability and self-awareness. Meanwhile, Daniel's life with Elena flourished. They traveled the world together, hiking through the Andes, exploring remote villages in Southeast Asia, and camping under the stars in the Rockies. Their shared adventures deepened their bond, and they eventually welcomed a daughter, Lily, into their lives. Becoming a father brought Daniel a joy he hadn't known was possible, and he cherished every moment with his growing family. Despite their busy lives, Daniel and Clara remained faint echoes in each other's worlds. Occasionally, Daniel would hear about Clara's memoir or see her name in articles about her community work, and he'd feel a quiet pride for the woman she had become. Clara, in turn, sometimes stumbled upon photos of Daniel and his family on social media, smiling and happy, and felt a bittersweet sense of closure. Years later, at a charity gala where Clara was being honored for her contributions, she noticed Daniel and Elena among the attendees. They were there to support the same cause, having become donors through their own philanthropic efforts. After the event, Daniel approached Clara during the mingling hour. Elena, understanding the moment, stayed back, giving them a chance to speak. Clara, Daniel began, "Congratulations. I've heard about all the incredible work you've been doing." "Thank you," Clara said, smiling warmly. "And your family looks beautiful. Lily is adorable." Daniel nodded, a proud grin spreading across his face. "She's the light of my life." There was a brief silence before Clara spoke again. "I'm truly glad to see you happy, Daniel. You deserve all the joy in the world." "I wish the same for you, Clara," Daniel replied. "You've come a long way. I hope you know that." Their conversation was brief but meaningful, a quiet acknowledgement of their shared history and the growth it had inspired. As Daniel rejoined Elena and Clara returned to her table, both felt a sense of peace they hadn't known they needed. Though their lives had taken separate paths, they remained living proof of the resilience of the human heart. What was once a story of betrayal and heartbreak had evolved into one of forgiveness, growth, and the unyielding pursuit of happiness.